Good morning, gentlemen. In continuation with my last video on YouTube on situation and presentation slides there, I would like to go further to talk further on about the situation and its perception. As discussed earlier, situation is nothing but a set of fleeting or lasting for very small time, dynamic, momentary circumstances that do not lie within a person, but in the surrounding. So situation is something external to the human, and we have the tendency to act or react on every situation. Okay, so situation constitute everything that is outside a person. A person, basically, are made up of goals, motive, value, interests, skills, abilities. You've got your own personalities, your own thinking. And situation, everything else, including other person. See, when a person comes in front, he himself becomes a situation. Anything outside. And we all have got a thought, feeling, desire, and behavior. So what would that person or the situation is creating onto us? We have got tendency to, react to those. So every situation is expecting us either to react or not to react. So we all perceive those situations in a particular fashion. As discussed earlier, there are three different kinds of situation information. First, situation gives you cues. Something which is happening in our moment, we interpret as the need of a response. So I give an example. Suppose a picture is given, where you visualize that you are in a jungle and where the tiger is standing. So you are supposed to act. You have to save yourself. So that is the cue. If you are walking in the evening, you find a snake. So snake is the night and the snake is the situation. What did you expect? I must protect myself. That is what so every cue gives a need, tells a person, or it gives a need for responding to that or reacting to that situation. Now, it has got quantified stimuli. It may be perceived and intimidated by a person yielding upon psychological situation characteristics. Because as I said, every person is different. So the way you respond, react is all going to be different. And the way we act, react is what is going to decide about the characteristics of the situation. Though the person who is designing the situation, he expects you to behave in a particular fashion. But depending upon your intellect and your own past learning and the experience that you have got and your personality, you would be adding or subtracting certain characteristics or giving certain characteristics to that situation. What is characteristics now? That is a psychologically meaningful interpretation of situation formed from a single or multiple cues. As I said, firstly, use it evening. So that's one cue. Or it's night. Suddenly you find a snake. That's become another cue. So night plus snake has added are two cues which are available. And it expects you to respond or react to that situation. Now, all the situations broadly can be classified in different categories. Given categories. So there are three kinds of situation information. First is cues, characteristics, and class. Okay. Now, people form perception of situation as if they are coherent entities leading to similar judgment pattern. What does it mean? If you have reacted today in a particular situation, we do expect that you will react the similar way in future as well. Or you must have learned to react to a particular situation in the past, and you would be reacting to that situation in a similar fashion today. Okay. And our own reaction to a particular situation is evolved since the human race has come into being. Fight and flight, that we all know about it. Either if we are stronger, we would like to fight it out. If we are weak, we want to run away. So that's how our evolution has come back. And same holds true till date. Now, depending upon your own personality and the environment that you are in, your reaction to particular situations will be different. I have just tried to summarize here. Any situation will have a cues. They call PEARL: person, event, activities, roles, location, and state. So any situation, they are the all basically psychological. They are the 6 type of cues which you will be getting it. Say you are in a college, you are being called by a principal. So situation is now a person. Second is you are expected to organize an event. Then it may be activities. Giving examination is an activities. Then you are given an appointment. You have to play a role of that appointment. Depending on the location, time, and other things are available, you would be acting differently. And the state is the mood in which you are entering a situation. Suppose you are hungry. Then your mind is preoccupied to find means to get over this hunger. Or you had a fight in house before going to office. What happens? Your reaction to the situation which is created in office will be different. Similarly, all situations have got in one of those 6 dimensions are given to them. So it can be perceived as a threat, it can be perceived as stress, it can be a task, it can be a processing, or it can be a fun enjoyment or mundane activities. So they have what they call dimensions of the situation. Then taxonomy, that is the classification of these are based on what they call diamonds. So if it is a threat, I would be expecting it to be adversity or even maybe a deception. Stress can be negative. As I said, no, normally we talk stress can be alpha press or beta press. Then task can be duty, processing, which requires intellect. Fun, it can be, enjoying with your partner. Positivity, handling a situation. Sociability. And if you go from the big 5, that is big 5 personality traits, so the threat can be regarded as either dominance or aggression. Stress can be regarded negative effect. We have got positive effect as well as negative effect. Task, achievement, need for achievement. Processing, it can be situation, stress can be there, and fun can be positive effect. So they are all based upon our big 5. So all these 5 situation dimensions that they call reversible 6 they call it, is almost equivalent to big 5 traits that we are all, that is big 5 traits are ocean, open to experience, C for consciousness, E for extrovert, A for awareness, N for neuroticism. Then every situation can be classified. One of the classification method which is sacrosanct accepted today is called interpersonal conflict, joint working information exchange, intimacy and interpersonal relationship, recreation, traveling, rituals, sports, excesses, or serving or trading. Okay. Now, having seen this, now how problem comes up, how people perceive the situation. Person situations are interdependent. Why do you say situation is dependent upon the person perceiving it, and person perceptions adds a value to the situation. So either can be situation, as I will give an example of snake. Someone can perceive it very, very strongly. It's a snake is going to bite and run away. Another person who is familiar with the snakes, probably he'll think, okay, it's a snake, it's a grass snake, it can walk through. So now the characteristic of the situation is changed by the individual personality and his own experience. Okay. Now the problem comes up, all stimuli, as I said, all stimuli, both external and internal, are processed within your own personality that you are having. So it's important to find out what is your personality, what are fractures in your personality, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. Study have shown that perceptions are not made of stone. It can't be changed. It is always changeable. It can change. How? They will vary according to situation who perceives a situation. According to person who perceives the stimuli. It means what? If you are a student and you are talking to your principal, it's a situation. On the contrary, if you are a principal and you are talking to students, situation changes, stimulus changes. The property of the stimulus itself, we have already talked about it, and the interaction with the person, because we trying situation trying to influence the stimuli, and stimulus has got a bearing on the person itself. Based upon this, Rothman came up with a very unique method, what he called a componential approach to situation perception. He says it can be, disentangled in the three, that the perceiver, situation, and perceiver situation variance. Perceiver is a perceiver's tendency of seeing situation tendency of being seen, and perceived situation variance is a perceiver's unique way of specific situation. Okay. Now, it has got its origin from the famous Levins, when he said that the person and his environment have to be considered as one constellation of interdependent factors, because we get affected by environment and we also affect the environment. So we are unique. No, we have got mutually, when we talk of thermodynamics, it must come to static state, it must be an equilibrium. Similarly, environment and individual, which we are put in environment, we must come to equilibrium. So there will be certain mediation. You will compromise, or you change your attitude. Either way, you have to come in, in equilibrium with the environment that you are living in. Okay, people constantly engage there's only an subjective situation construal. Means what? The way we perceive, comprehend, interpret the world will guide our behavior, which makes situation perception a fundamental so. So it's unique to individual. Based upon the Lewin's theory, person-situation transaction is, Thompson has talked about it. He says, emphasize the interdependence of person situation. We have already talked about earlier. It is disposition. Our inherent quality of mind and the character requires situation within which to manifest. So if we have to survive as human, we want the situation. We want to grow. We want to change. We want something to happen. On the contrary, situation could be seen as event test. And every situation is going to test us as a person. So it is mutual. Situation has got effect on human, or we as a person, and person has got an effect on the situation. So the situation may be affordance, whatever environment offers to individual, or process that modulates. So the situation is going to modulate what? Modulate at the way we think, feel, act, and behave. So it's like a carrier wave. Any signal which is being transmitted, say the optical fiber, the carrier wave is the video, that is the laser beam. And our voice and our data overrides in modulating the carrier wave. Similarly, situation modifies the way we think, feel, act, and behave. So the total diagram, total situation perception components he perceived was, it consists of firstly a situation itself. We talked situation, characteristics, and class that we have talked about it. It can be location, time, social media, and so this will have effect on, they call situation effects. How a situation generally seen. So depending upon the situation, as you take in SSV, we give you about say 11 pictures and one blank. It is all left to you to decide how to perceive those situations. And every person who is writing a story, he ought to be different, because he is an individual person. His way of thinking, acting, and behaving is different. So this is first the situation, then the person himself. Each person has got a trait, goal, motive, knowledge, appraise, everything available to him. So he enters the situation perception with his own values and personality. Next, the context where this particular situation is located. So first is situation and the context in which it is located. So this is also going to have effect on situation effect. And finally, what you caught were person, situation, transaction, if then pattern. We'll talk about these three slightly later on. So now what we say, we have got a situation, we have got a person, this person is lying in a certain environment. So we are going to enter the situation perception through situation, that is route A, through our own values, that is route B, depend the environment that we are looking at, route C, and the way person, situation, transition, we said that each are going to affect each other. So how the transition is taken, that's the D. So A, B, C, D, they are the four paths through which we develop the situation perception. So it has perceiver effect. It is totally dependent upon own personality perceiver effect. How a person generally sees the situation. It will vary from individual to individual, the way he has seen or he has reacted earlier times. Now, depends upon the environment and the situation, he will enter into situation effect. How a situation generally seen. And then depending upon the transaction, personal, situation, transaction, he will get perceiver plus situation effect, it will be created. Okay. Now, since we had talked about so many terms, it is better to understand what is perceiver effect. What is perceiver? We say perceiver, this is a perceiver effect, we talked about it. Okay. So what is perceiver? Describes the influence of environmental factors on one's perception of stimuli. And that influence can be cultural, epoch theory, though it is not in favor, but assumes that since our development, we have got tendency to mirror our historical development as a human race. It is slightly not in favor now. But second is ecological niche, the position of person, situation as it corresponds to other people in the group, especially in terms of social status rank, or function of organism or population within biological or physical environment. What is position? Suppose, I just said, I'll give an example. If you are a teacher, or if you are a student, or if you are a principal, depending on your position, you've got certain environment you would like to. There's a kursi par kursi bolti hai. So if you are sitting in a position, you ought to behave in a particular fashion, whether you like it or don't like. That is the second ecological niche. Then comes a JTS. It refers to the form of supra-individual mind at work in world and developed in the culture. So that depending upon the culture in which we have grown from the childhood, it will have its own effect. So this is what was contextual factor. Then we also talked about transaction, person, situation, transaction. Human behavior may be determined by the person, situation, or a combination of both. First, if-then pattern. The statement follows if-then pattern, whereby action depends upon certain conditions of observers. I gave an example of snake. You see a snake walking through the road. If the snake is walking across, probably you like it, why do you let it go in its own way? On the contrary, if the snake is trying to get after you, or probably it's coming towards you, your action will be then. So depending upon the situation, if and then condition will be applied in a particular situation. Sequence selection. Sequence selection involves choosing situation based on their likely emotional impact and maybe less cognitive, taxing, or challenging to implement compared to the strategy of regulating emotion, which requires people to regulate their emotion in the moment. What does it mean? So you are the person who is going to select the situation, no one else. Different defense mechanism that we use it around there, it based upon our own reaction to a particular situation. That is what is defense mechanism we use. Then corresponsive principle. Principle concerned about the personality environment transition that involves life experience. Simply put across, the traits that are more likely to be developed by a life experience are the traits that are most responsible for bringing or exposing individual to that life experience. Means anything which you like it, you would like to perform. Anything which you don't like, you won't like to perform. Anything which you had met with the success, you would like to perform that way. That is what is the context factor. Okay. Having talked, so we did talk about what is context factor. We did talk about person, situation, effect. Okay. Now, after this, now, gentlemen, we'll talk about what is perception now. Perception is driven by different components. What are those? This particular thing was given based on social relation model. This is what has taken Thompson. He is the person who took from this. Any rating will be broken into variance due to perceiver, actor, target, or relationship. Means what? The perception will be depend upon the perceiver, the individual himself, difference in perceiver general tendency of being situation itself, and perceiver situation interaction, that difference in perception, unique impression of special situation. So these three factors, the situation, what is situation? We have already talked about composed of canopy. It's a suite of objectively quantified cues. We have already talked about its location and other aspects, and we'll talk about slightly more cues like later on. What does the situation do? It creates a press. And psychology is called alpha press, what it is. Okay. Now, as I said, alpha press, you have seen a snake, that's a press. Now the press is the real time the snake is there. But how do I perceive it? That might come in beta press. How do I react to that situation? So what is my perception? I keep on giving an example. Suppose you are from a not so good, your financially are not very sound, and you want to do, say, undertake coaching. You go to your father and ask for money. Father tells you, probably we can't afford to manage now, we'll do it later on. Okay, so what is your perception is that father does not have money, that's a place. You are not socially not very, or socially economic, you're not very sound. Very nice. But your perception is that I want to study, my father purposely don't want to give money so that I can develop myself. So that's my perception, that's the beta press. So it depends upon the associative intrapersonal process, that is your own cognition, affect, motivation, volition, intention, and regulation. Beta press depend upon that. And this in turn will depend upon behavior dynamics. You will be reactive, evocative, proactive. What will depend upon this? You will be acting in a particular fashion, or probably may not be acting in a particular fashion. The press in turn, what does the press do? It adds a value, it modifies the situation itself. As I said, now signal modifies the carrier wave like light wave. Similarly, our own presses which have been alpha or beta press depend upon individual, it is going to modulate the situation. Okay, so then we call perceiver effect. What is perceiver effect? Let's go back to that perceiver effect. Say, very perceiver, this is perceiver effect which depends upon the person, factor, personal factors. Okay, let's come back. Should be strongly tied to enduring person factors such as traits, needs, value, expression. So it is your own personality, the pathway we already talked about. What is situation effect? Let's say, this is situation effect. Okay, situation effect is how situations are consensually existing or made by mutual consent without any further act. That is situation effect. Seen or canonically conforming to general rule or accepted procedure, interpreted or captured the situation effect, and depends on a special situation cues at hand. Whatever is available to you, and macro context to a given, depend upon your culture, you would like to act or react in different fashion. So this is what we call situation effect. Then we have talked about perceiver situation effect. Third effect was perception situation effect. This is what we have talked about. Third one, that is how it is going to be. What does it do? We have already talked about it, that it will have if-then effect, if-then patterns, situation selection, and corresponding corresponsive principle. Okay. Now, all situations depend perceiver situation component for big five classes are generally examined across crucial rating. They call every situation can be rated based on what called frequency rating, balance rating, and activation rating. That's what is there. First, now the problem is, how do we associate a situation with our past experience, the way we've acted or reacted earlier, depend upon the class of situation that a perceiver has seen. Okay, so first let's talk about the situation class. It can be distinguished regarding the relative percentage of perceiver versus situation variance. Means what? If I give the same situation, I say a boy in a storm, and hundreds of people write a story onto that. So the class, so it will be the perceiver versus how each person is going to visualize that situation. It will vary from person to person. It will depend upon his own personality traits. Say, if he's extrovert and agreeableness, then probably expressed in sense. So all these are related to the traits. Big 5, or in the case of SSV, 15 OLQs that we generally trying to test. Okay. So now second, there's an individual difference in perceiving situation which should be related to personality. Individual difference in perceiving, it will depend upon personality. Perceiving should be linked to corresponding disposition, person, character, that is your own OLQ. Okay. In SSB, fortunately or unfortunately, no formulation components approach to OLQ has been, not to my knowledge, has been done. Though there has been certain change was expected in SSB called de novo based domains, based on domain theory, but has again is still on a whole state till now. I have just tried to extend the action model to our existing system in SSV. This was the last picture which I had given in the earlier video. Just again repeat. Cues are here. This is a person in the storm. He's a person. This character is adversity, and it's a threat because he has to save himself. He was traveling, so this is the class. Second situation, here is the state because he is in a sad state. He is a negativity. Then there is a stress onto him, and so this will depend upon class intimacy and personal relationship. That's how he's interacting with some senior person with him. In this case, it is activity. He is performing a job. It is duty. So it replaces replicable, flexible task and trading. So this is how we can afford to interpret them. Similarly, now as far as the frequency rating concerned, we don't encounter a storm every now and then. So it is a rare situation. Frequency is rare. On this question, this will be often because we have small little problem every day in our life. So this keeps happening. This situation of acting or working is again a common situation. But going to the hospital is a rare situation. So this is the how called frequency rating. Then we call valence rating. It can be termed as pleasant or unpleasant. That's another way of interpreting things. So it is certainly unpleasant. This is unpleasant. This is working is a pleasant environment. Taking is unpleasant. So this is the valency rating. Then called activation. Now, activation can be friendly, unfriendly, tense or calm, or interesting or dull. In this particular case, a boy in a storm, it is activating. It's tense situation. You have to save yourself. Here again, he is activating. So it is tense situation. And this again is working. Life, interesting, it is his job which he enjoys. Again, a tense situation. And here, a group of people are finding the friendly situation. So this is activation rating. As for the class is concerned, based upon our 4 factors. The first we expect people to know this is the class. I expect to get response or reaction from factor 1 and factor 4, planning, organization, and dynamics. In this case, I expect him to give social adjustment plus dynamic and mental stamina is more important. So depending upon the class, every assessor would expect a particular type of response. But what is the exact response will depend upon individual's personality. Okay. Having talked about it, this is what we then we come back to some other word. There's now ability is the word. Use its role, characterize his intellect, replicate his task. It is expected that he will factor in because the way we find a solution to day-to-day problem using our brain, using our intelligence. Dirty is a state. Characteristic is a negativity. It replicates it creates a stress. Now, it will be a factor 2. So similarly, we can all come back to different type of. So as per the benefit of frequency rating and valence area attribution, we can come first. Ability is often we keep on this common phenomenon. We have to show our ability each and every moment. And showing ability is a present phenomena. But if you are not able to solve it, it will give alpha press or beta press, and it's so delete factor 1. So similarly, all those particular qualities can be given. The perception will depend upon all these particular factors that we have been talking about it. Okay. Now, this methods of it's a big. This is we in SSV you have got 12 TAT, 60 WAT, and 60 SRT given to study. 15 traits grouped in a factor of 4 factors. Okay. So all these particular things can be done. Similarly, now we can also talk about any other situation, like now, let's say GTO task, group discussion, group planning exercise. It's a situation case and created. Progressive group task is a situation. Half group task, command task, they are all situations we created. And how we act and react, that is what is going to deciding factor to check whether our personality is right or not so right. Not so right. So it is what, gentlemen, I'm trying to say, you must, the perception of situation is very important. And you must perceive the situation rightly. That can only happen if your personality is right. I always maintain we must take the strongest detergent powder like Nirma and keep cleaning our personality day in, day out. In spite of variety of situations that we keep meeting every day-to-day life. So having talked about this situation, in next video, we'll try and talk about the difference. So we simply, at the end, I simply said every situation is associated with a type of problem. It may be psychology, it can be GTO, or it can be interview. What the interview officer doing? He is asking you to relate your own experience of past. But how do you want to relate? Tell that a story. Depending upon the perception that you have got it, because you want to impress the interview officer, is what you decide the characteristic of the situation and your own perceived situation effect that is going to have. And depending upon the perceived situation effect that has got, you will be talking something which is going to decide your fate in right way or not so right way. So what I always maintain, please learn to react to a particular situation in a particular fashion. Don't just keep writing stories. Don't keep just making sentence. It won't help you. What it helps you to understand yourself. You must know yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And if you have known your strength, work on your strength. Work on your strength is what is going to be the most important. As I keep an example around there, every day in our house, our wife, mother, or everyone keeps sweeping the floor. Why do they sweep? Is there every day whatever dirt is there, they put it in one corner, thrown out. So if they can happen, that can happen in our house, why can't we afford to keep cleaning our personality? How much time do we devote ourselves to clean our personality? Like a parrot, most of the students who are trying to appear in SSV are trying to, no, mujhe kahani likhna hai, and he keeps writing a story. It is not going to help you. You must really understand, perceive the situation rightly, and try and work on the strength and try and bring out the quality. No human is born who does not have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. And we have no option but to live with that weaknesses. What will happen? If I work on my strength, I will have absolutely no time to think about my weakness. I keep giving example of very small story. night, that is रात, हमारी संस्कृति में is regarded as a lady. So lady went to the sun, who is supposed to be God, and she complains against day, that is दिन, कि जहां भी मैं जाती हूँ मेरे पीछे दिन भागता है. What happens? As a result, now God only said, called din. I say I have never had look at the night, because wherever I go it is only the white and white and white. So I always work on strength. Hope it conveys the meaning. Hope it liked it. Thank you, and keep enjoying it. Thank you.